recording. This is the Goods Fam on Twitch. I am Philly Good, and we'll be learning about the MPCX again today. It is now 10 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm here every day from 10 to 11 Eastern Time, and what we'll be going through today is the MPC Bible, chapter 16, Chopping Drums, part 2. So if you've been following along, we'll be continuing where we left off yesterday. If you want to catch up, you can catch the other videos on YouTube or on Twitch here. So just one moment. I'm just going to shut the door and we'll get right into it. So fixing clicks and pops. Threshold chopping is great. However, there is an annoying bug. Some regions have an annoying click or pop at the end. For example, pad A01. So I'm going to go actually and load up what we had going last time. So that was the region chopping project, and on pad A01, I'll turn up the volume. So pad A01, if you zoom in on the end of region 1, you can actually see the source of the click at the end of the waveform. We can, of course, reduce the endpoint of region 1 so it stops before the click begins. However, this will also affect the start point of region 2, which to my ears actually sounds pretty tight, so I don't really want to change this. To get around this problem, we have to first disable link slices. So right here, and tap it so it's no longer white. And with link slices disabled, we no longer have a shared edit point between adjacent regions. Instead, the start and end point of each region in our break is now entirely independent of any other regions. Hold down Shift and turn on the snap 0. This will allow us to make finer adjustments to our endpoint. With region 1 selected, start turning the second Q-link from the bottom. Q-link column 2 anti-clockwise. This is the X10 endpoint Q-link, or if you prefer, the bottom Q-link column 2 to move in X1 increments, okay? As you turn the Q-link, keep on hitting pad 1 to continually preview the audio of region 1 with pad 1, pad A01. When you hear the click disappear, you're done. They set theirs to 15323, which is where it's already set here. But I'm just going to change it for a sec to see. Okay. So as seen there, the red endpoint of region 1 is now fully detached from the green start point of region 2. We've only edited region 1, leaving region 2 completely untouched. You can now whiz through the rest of the regions and make similar adjustments to the endpoints of any regions with clicks at the end. For example, regions 3, 8, 13, 14, 16, 21, and 23. You'll soon find you can perform this kind of tweaking very quickly. The key point is to use your ears. When the audible click is gone, you're done. So quickly preview the next region, fix it if necessary, and then move on, and so on. Okay, so I'm just trying to figure out because I don't see a whole bunch of different regions anymore. I suppose we don't really need to go through it a bunch of times, but it would have been cool to try it a few more times. But you do get the idea there. Okay, this one here has 16 regions. Okay, so we'll do it here on this one. This is where we should do it. So if we zoom in, turn that down a bit. Okay. I see, so you gotta select it and then zoom in, and then you can adjust it, but really I don't see there's much adjusting needing to be done there. I think that was good. Oh yeah, they were mentioning the different numbers. So number 3 should probably have an adjustment is what they're saying. I was trying to fit in adjustments where there wasn't really any needed there. But let's take a look here and see if there's something we can. Oops. Okay. don't really see any adjustment being needed, and I think this is kind of tedious to do on camera for all of you, so we're just going to skip through and assume that we adjusted the 8, 13, 14, 16, 21, and 23 regions, and we'll continue on. So I don't see any adjustments being needed in any of these that I'm going to, so it just seems odd to really continue. I don't see anything. Yeah, I think it's because the way I actually chopped these up and saved them was a little more precise than what they had allowed in their example. So we'll continue on here. I'm just gonna get a sip of water. Now, anybody new out there, if you're here, please jump during a live stream. So that's my goal. Please help out if you can. That would be really cool. All right, workflow tip, tweaking the start point. While you are editing the endpoints with the Q links, why not first make sure that the start parameter has been selected. Single tap. This way, if you think the start point also needs some adjustment, you can use your data wheel. This method ensures you keep your Q-link editing for the endpoint and the data wheel for the start point, so there's no confusion, leading to a much quicker workflow, especially for live users who would otherwise need to keep selecting different Q-link columns for start and endpoint editing. So I guess that's a big tip there for the live users. Exporting individual hits. So we'll go to main and select the next blank unused sequence. Set a tempo of 85 BPM. Now head back to our break and sample edit. Hold down hold down shift and hit convert. And as before, select new program with new samples and hit do it. This will create a new program and press play start. You should hear your chop beat playback perfectly. Not though. As with region chopping, maybe I did something wrong there. Let me try that again. So go back to sample edit, hit shift, convert. We're gonna hit create events this time and see if it'll do what I wanted. No. Interesting. Okay. So as with region chopping, the MPC has created a program of chops, this time called Dirty Break CH-1, and created sequencer events to recreate the break perfectly. I don't think so though. Shift, convert, wait, cancel. Dirty break, shift, convert, new program with new samples, do it, okay. There. So load up the project file. In the MPC Bible tutorial files, chapter 16, chopping drum breaks, part 2, and we're going to load up the threshold chopping.xpj project. Select sequence 1, original break, and this way we'll hear the version that they had of this threshold chop break. Compared to the region chopping export we performed in the previous chapter, each event here only represents a single drum hit, which naturally gives us a much more flexible sequence and program to work with. Preview all the slices by hitting your pads. Real-time tempo changes. Okay. Real-time tempo changes. In main, tap the tempo field, and while your sequence plays, turn the data wheel to start increasing the sequence tempo. Unlike region chopping, this time our break matches the new tempo perfectly. Again, your break adapts nicely to the slower tempos. Although eventually it becomes obvious that there are gaps between each chop, this happens because ultimately all you're doing is firing off a bunch of slices from a break, and each one of those slices will contain background noise and hiss, as well as the original room ambiance it was recorded with. So the moment that the slice reaches its endpoint, all that hiss and noise also stops. If the next slice is triggered immediately, you'll never notice this noise. But as you drop the tempo of your sequence, the space between each event increases. This space will be true silence. There's no sampled audio there at all. So eventually it will become very obvious where the different slices are being triggered. This is why slowed down breaks can become choppy, very choppy sounding. Everybody out there that's watching, please jump in the chat and also hit the follow, subscribe, and the notification bell. I'm Philly Good here on the Goods Fam, and I'm here every day 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time with the MPCX. Hope you're having a wonderful morning. And we'll continue on now. Configuring your sequence before export. In the example that showed here, we had a 2-bar break which we exported to the default blank MPC sequence in a new project. This also happens to be 2 bars in length. However, it's important to note that when you're exporting a chop break, when you're exporting a chop break, there must be enough bars in the receiving sequence to actually hold all these incoming MIDI events. So if you're exporting a 4-bar break, the currently selected sequence in your project must be at least 4 bars long. If it were, say, 2 bars long, only the first 2 bars of your chopped events would be exported to the sequence. Select and play sequence 2, faster tempo. From the current project, and you'll hear the version that they have of the faster tempo sequence. Editing existing chop events. consider the second kick in this beat, which is on pad A02. It's this MIDI note here on the pad A02 line. Right there. So, want to change this to be an open hi-hat instead? Pad A09 is an open hi-hat slice, so let's just change this A02 event to be an A09 event instead. Hit pad A02 to select it, press transpose, and turn the data wheel 7 clicks clockwise, or you can press the plus button 7 times. Alright. Press play start to hear the difference. How easy was that? You can hear their version on sequence 3. Of the threshold chopping project. This is where they transpose several other events across the sequence, including a straight swap of the high-pitched snare pad A3 with a lower-pitched version from A16. Remember, this is just a standard sequence, so you can perform nudges and velocity changes to any event in your grid. Add a bit more groove and feel these can be added in real time with quantize turned off. For example, we can use the kick found on pad A02 to turn off quantize. You press TC, the top right of the main screen, and set timing correct to off. Now remember, I mentioned before that chop programs are automatically set to monophonic playback. Now playback, as this will also allow us to overdub our ghost hits over other events. So go to Program, Edit, Global, Poly, set poly to poly. Before recording any overdubs to an existing sequence, I would normally have a bit of a practice run. Just press play start, and while the beat's playing, try experimenting with adding some groovy ghost kicks to your beat using pad A15. Okay. Once you're happy, hit overdub and play start and record your ghost kicks to your sequence. It doesn't sound good. I didn't do good there, but you get the idea. If you make a mistake, you can just hit the undo button and re-overdub it. Say I'm happy with that. Or say I'm not. You can also go manually to edit the incorrect note events in the grid editor using the nudge tool. So say I just wanted to select this one here. I could go nudge and just nudge it slightly over to the beginning of here, and then say I didn't like this here either, I could always nudge that over right there, say that's what I wanted. Say I didn't like that, I can just move it around and play around with it. So say I like that. Alright. Remember, you can turn off full level to help vary the velocity of your ghost notes, or edit the velocity of recorded notes in the velocity lane. Repeat this process with some additional snare hits. So pretend like that's where I want it, right there. I know it doesn't sound good. It's not matching up, but it's all good. They're just giving us the idea of how you can add in different things, nudge them over, transpose them, all of that. So select sequence 4, overdub, and you'll hear their version. Notice how they made a copy of the original chopped break program, Dirty Break CH-2, in which they have set all pad playback to poly. You can easily duplicate a program in main by hitting the pencil icon at the end of the drum program row and selecting duplicate or duplicate to track to simultaneously copy and assign the new program to the next available track. Thank you all for tuning in. This is Philly Good on the Goods Fam on Twitch. We're looking at the MPCX, and we're simply just going through the MPC Bible step by step, learning about the MPCX and how to use the machine. So I know this may be slow and tedious to some of you if you're watching, but if you have an MPC, it'll probably be a lot more interesting to you. So hopefully you stick around and continue to watch. Let's continue. Applying a quantized template. While you were recording your overdubs, you may have noticed that the break wasn't perfectly matching your metronome clicks. The reason for this is simple. Your original break was recorded by a human, not a sequencer, and as such, the original drummer would have introduced his own unique feel to the performance. A live drum performance will rarely conform to a rigid quantized template. However, with the performance now converted into MIDI event data, we can use the timing correct features to apply a quantized template, just like we looked at in the quantizing and swing tutorial. In grid view, hold down Shift and press TC. Set the Tim div to 1/16, and that'll be a quantized template of 1/16, and set events to all. Now press do it. Oh, I guess it didn't change anything for me, but if you change something, do it light up. And the MPC will shift all your events to the nearest 1/16th quantized point. A setting of 1/16th is a very good setting for a nice tight sequenced feel. Follow the green arrows below to see how some of these notes were moved. So let's see. What they had done was they had this note here all the way up here before. They had this note all the way up there, and they had this note all the way up here. So we're going to press play start, and we're going to hear what the beat sounds like now. It's lost that human feel, and it's definitely sounding more sequenced with a tighter feel. You can hear their version in sequence 5, quantize. Of course, applying a quantized template has also quantized my ghost notes. So if you wanted the bulk of your beat to be quantized, but also have some unquantized ghost notes, you would be better off applying a quantized template first and then recording your ghost notes after with timing correct set to off. Alright, adding tail to your chops. If you listen to the quantized sequence on headphones, it's really obvious that the sequence sounds very choppy. This is because the chops end so abruptly. So if the chop is being used to cover a lightly longer time span than it did originally, you're going to get that choppy gap before the next chop is played. And as mentioned previously, this will also happen when the break is slowed below the original 85 BPM. To help counter this issue, we can use the tail length option. So go to Program, Edit, and then select pad A01. By default, the tail length is off. Preview A01 with headphones. It should be clear that the kick ends very abruptly. Change tail length to 100 milliseconds. And preview A01 again. You should hear that the tail setting has added a small amount of fade to the end of the chop, giving us a much smoother ending to the slice. What about the tail start setting? Well, I find for adding a small amount of tail to the end of a single hit drum chop, the default 253 milliseconds is fine, so leave this untouched. If you're in a rush, you can add a minimum of 100 millisecond tail length to all your chops using Edit Zones All. How do we do that? Edit zones. Looks like they did it. Yeah, it's right from the top there. Okay. And if you go under all, remember to set edit zones back to current afterwards. In most cases, 100 millisecond tail length will add enough fade to make a massive improvement to your chop kit. But if you wish, you can check each pad individually and add a custom amount of tail length, adding or reducing as required. As you'll start to hear a weird, unnatural appears, unless of course that's the effect you're looking for. In fact, tail could be used to create all sorts of weird and twisted chops. I'm just going to jump in the chat real quickly. I hope you can too. I'm looking to get 5 people in the chat today, so if you are here and watching, jump in the chat right now. I want to see who is here, and I'd like to say hello to everybody. My channel is not the most interesting right yet. I still have lots of things to try and figure out and set up. I'm going to add more widgets and all of that stuff over time, so it will be a lot more interactive. But for now, if you're here and you have an MPC, hopefully it's interesting enough just trying to follow along on the MPC. Shout out to DJ Whisper 1984. He has a show every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. Thursdays starting at 7, Friday, Saturday starting at 8 p.m. It's a lot of fun. Check it out. So, tail versus decay. We know we can create a fade to the end of a one-shot pad by using the amp envelope decay parameter. However, decay is a subtractive type of fade. It makes your sound shorter. Tail length is an additive type of fade. It increases the length audio of your pad, which can make a big difference when dealing with drum chops. Now, dealing with clicks. After adding 100 milliseconds of tail length, some pads developed a little click at the end, for example, pad A02. To remove that click, try reducing the end point of the slice directly on the pad itself in Program Edit Samples. So where Program Edit Samples, select the end point, pinch and zoom into the end of the waveform. Okay. And once magnified, turn the data wheel anti-clockwise 1 click, or use the minus button on the MPC hardware. Preview the pad, and if the click persists, turn the wheel 1 more click. At this point, you might even be able to then squeeze a little more tail length on the pad before it sounds unnatural. For example, after reducing the end point on pad A03, then I could add 133 milliseconds with no artifacts. You can hear their version of this in sequence 7, Quantized Tail. Oh, I have it on sequence 6. Interesting. Alright. So, we're at chapter 17. Building dynamic kits and sequences. Still got 17 minutes to go, so I think we'll just keep going. We'll get into this. If you're here and watching, though, please jump in the chat. I'd love to get 5 people in the chat today. That's my goal. Please help out if you can. All right. Building dynamic kits and sequences. So far, we've been using the auto-generated chop program as the basis of our chop sequences. In this tutorial, we'll build a very realistic sounding multi-sampled live drum kit using samples threshold chopped from live drum breaks. First, start with a new blank project. Go to Menu, New Project. In the browser, navigate to the Chapter 17 folder and single tap the multi-sample drums. Okay, once you're in that subfolder, there are drum hits, threshold chopped from a couple of live breaks, taken from the same studio session as the drum break that they've been using in the previous chopping tutorials. So hold down Shift and press Load All, and the entire contents of this folder will go into the Now go back to Menu, Project, open up the project panel, with all samples selected. You can see our multi-sample drums. I don't see that there though, so let's go back. I guess go back to Browse. I guess you got to be in there and then Shift and Load All, and then go back to Menu, Project. Huh. It really just isn't loading all for me. Not sure why. Maybe from here, if I select it like that. Alright. And then go back to Menu, Project, and they're all loaded in there now. Okay, got it. So you can see that there's a few examples of each instrument. All kicks and snares are provided with multiple takes at 3 different velocities. The S for soft, M for medium, and H for hard. RS is simply a unique prefix for these sounds. K stands for kick. SN stands for snare. CH is a closed hat. OH is an open hat. H stands for hard, as in a hard hit. M is for a medium hit. S is for a soft hit. 3 means this is hard kick number 3 in the collection. The closed and open hi-hats are all recorded at the same approximate velocity, but all sound a little different. These samples are just in the format RSCH1. So close the project panel and in main program, in the program field, locate the default blank program 001 drum program and rename it to finger kit. Using the A icon at the right end of the row, like I just did. Timbre variation using multiple drum sounds. One of the very cool features of drum programs is the ability to set up a drum kit that can be used to creating something so realistic is that we can emulate the natural timbre variations you'd expect to hear in a real drum performance. Timbre simply refers to the different ways an instrument can sound depending on how and where it is hit or played. Take hitting a snare drum, for example. Think how differently that snare drum would sound if you first hit it very hard and then hit it very soft. There would not only be a difference in the volume, there would be a massive difference in the character of the sound. A hard snare hit has a very pronounced crack and a longer decay tail. It will ring for much longer after being hit. A softly hit snare, on the other hand, will not really have any pronounced crack and will not ring out for very long at all. It will also often sound duller. These changes in characteristics are referred to as a change in timbre. You'll hear other obvious timbre changes when you strike a snare in different positions, such as in the middle compared to hitting it near to the edge. However, if you even try hitting it in the same place at the same velocity 10 times straight, it would most likely sound slightly different each time. It's these subtle and not so subtle changes in timbre that give life and realism to any drum performance you record in your MPC. Using multi-sampled drums. Okay, an MPC drum program provides you with all the features you need to create realistic timbre variations, be it artificially emulating them or by using pre-recorded multi-samples of the same drum sound. Firstly, let's assign a kick, snare, closed hat, and open hat to pads A05 through to A08. Okay. So A05, sample assign. So these will be our primary sounds on layer 1 of each pad. So go to Program, Edit, Samples, and assign RS K H1 to pad A05. So I'll scroll through the samples. RS K H1. Now RS SN H1 to A06. RS CH1 to pad 7, and RS OH1 to pad 8, using the techniques discussed previously in the book. So now in our newly loaded folder of sounds, we also have some medium and soft hit kicks. So wouldn't that be great if we could just have the MPC play the hard kick for hard pad hits, the medium kick for medium velocity pad hits, and the soft kick for soft pad hits? Welcome to the world of velocity switching and dynamic layers. Velocity switching pad layers. So far we've assigned a single sample to each pad, but we know from the drum layering chapter, each pad in an MPC drum program can hold up to 4 samples, one assigned to each pad layer. Now by default, when you assign more than one sample to a pad, it'll play back all the samples simultaneously, which was very handy for drum layering. However, we can also configure a pad to play back just one of the layers based on certain criteria. One of these criteria is based on the velocity at which the pad is hit. So if we hit the pad softly, we can tell the MPC to play back a soft sample on layer 3. If we hit it with medium velocity, it plays the medium sample on layer 2. And if we play it hard, it plays back the hard sample on layer 1. This is called velocity switching. Press pad number 5, A5. The RS kick H1 sample is already assigned to layer 1 of the pad. This is the hard kick. We now need to assign a medium kick to layer 2 of the same pad. So let's use the same sample but RSKM1 instead. If you want to use the Q links for this, using the second Q link from the top. And Q link bank 1. For me, I don't think that's the same for the MPCX. It's probably on the live or the 1. They prefer just tapping on the second layer, which is what I did, and then turning the data wheel until you find the RSKM sound from the sample list. Now you can perform this, it's either samples screen 1 or samples. So we're going to repeat this procedure for layer 3, this time assigning the soft kick sample to RSKS1. If you listen to pad A05 now, you'll hear all 3 samples playing simultaneously and hence acting like a layered drum sound, but we'll fix that very soon. Now select pad A06 and follow the same procedure we used for the kicks, but this time assign our 3 snare dynamics. So layer 1 is RSSNH1, layer 2 is RSSNM1, and layer 3 is RSSNS1. And again, if you preview pad 6, you'll hear all 3 snares play simultaneously. And we'll stop here for today. We'll continue on tomorrow with this same chapter, chapter 17, building velocity sensitive drum kits. I'm just going to save this for now. As 17. It's all set to go tomorrow from where we left off with those pads set up. So now I'm gonna go and load up the beat that we made last Sunday and just play around with it for the last few minutes. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is the Goods Fam on Twitch. I am Philly Good on the MPCX, going through the MPC Bible to learn about the MPC and teach all of you and to build a little community around learning the MPC. So thank you once again. If you could hit the follow and please subscribe and the notification bell to let you know that I'm here every day 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And if you can, please follow and check out DJ Whisper 1984. He's Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays. Thursday starting at 7, and Friday and Saturday starting at 8 p.m. It's a real fun time there, so yeah, come hang out. Alright, let's check out what we had here. We only had the one sequence. I was just getting the start with it, but everyone for checking it out. Have a wonderful day, and remain watching, and I'll raid over to another channel. Enjoy your day. Peace.